So if you're a marketer, let me ask, how confident are you that your content actually connects in every market? If you're guessing, it might be time to check out Phrase. Phrase is the industry-leading AI localization platform that helps you deliver content in multiple languages without losing your tone, your message, or your mind. It automates the manual work, slashes review time, and gives you real data on what's working where. Brands like Uber and Zendesk trust Phrase to scale their content across the globe and get it right every time. If you're serious about reaching more people and driving better results internationally, head over to phrase.com/MPN and take a look. That's phrase.com/MPN. Are you tired of juggling multiple software tools to manage your agency? Say hello to Deltek Workbook, the ultimate solution for marketing and communication agencies. With Workbook, you can streamline your projects, resources, and finances all in one place. Imagine real-time dashboards and reports giving you full visibility into your projects, people, and financials. Plan your team's capacity weeks in advance to avoid bottlenecks while staying on budget to maximize project margins. Plus, Workbook works perfectly for both agencies and in-house marketing teams looking to boost efficiency and profitability. And here's the best part. At PCI, we're a certified Deltek partner and reseller offering expert implementation, integrations, and ongoing support to ensure your success. Want to see how Deltek Workbook can transform your operations? For a free consultation, visit pci.us/podcast today. That's pci.us/podcast.
Coming up on this episode of The Entrepreneurial You.
One of the lessons that I try to tell people is you don't get into this for the guts, for the glory. There's a lot of long days, there's a lot of emails, there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of just listening to other folks, making sure the information is correct. Be consistent to understand what's needed or understand how to operate. And that way you can develop a product that works for the community and keeps a consistent path of communication.
Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's The Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
All right, my people, how you doing? It is indeed another episode of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. Welcome. Of course, ambition meets action right here. I'm your host, Heneka Watkis-Porter, and today's show is all about the fascinating intersection of sports, business, and community impact. My guest is industry veteran Adam Lee Spencer, owner of Spencer Group International. So with more than 2 decades across athlete management, sports marketing, and global event consulting, Adam blends deep expertise with a unique international perspective. And of course, we're looking forward to that. So from registering with FIBA and FIFA to representing athletes through sports management worldwide, Adam has done it all. He's a certified youth sports administrator and a recognized strategist in sports media and community engagement, especially within the African American community. So if you're passionate about unlocking opportunities in sports or curious about what it takes to manage major sports events and athlete careers, you love today's episode. And I just want to take a moment to also let you know that whereas we do entrepreneurship on this show, there are so many lessons and parallels that can be drawn from the world of sports. And so we're going to get into that today. Welcome, Adam Lee Spencer. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Good everything to you. Grace, peace, and mercy from Pacific Northwest.
Awesome. So my listeners, my peak performers, we're looking at the business of sports, maximizing athlete potential and event impact. And many of you here are event hosts. You are, whilst you may not be into athletics, you are into managing events and even managing your business, right? And as like I said, there are so many parallels that can be drawn. So sport is really much more than the action on the field. What it is a dynamic industry that shapes brands, grow communities, and build futures. Adam Spencer, he has spent his career at this crossroads, creating innovative programs for athletes and consulting for organizations to maximize their impact. Now, today, we're going to pull back the curtain with Adam's help on what it takes to succeed in athlete management, the nuances of sports administration, and why strategic community engagement is a game changer in today's world. And again, draw the parallels from sports into business. Thank you so much again, Adam. Let me get into our icebreaker. So, you've worked with global athletes and world renowned organizations. So, what's the most exciting sports event that you've ever attended or managed, and why did it leave such an impression on you?
Oh, wow, there's been a few. You got me early. Um,
Choose. Choose. I'm asking you to choose amongst your children.
Man, I went to the 2008 Euro quarterfinal between Turkey and Croatia in Vienna
Mhm.
for the spectacle, especially to what happened towards at the end of the game. It was crazy. For those of you soccer fan, other parts of the world, they call it football, or however it's pronounced in your country.
Yeah, we call it football over here, but go ahead.
You are in Jamaica,
Jamaica.
Kingston.
Well, close to Kingston. For ease of reference, I'd answer yes, but in terms
Okay,
of specifics, I am about, let's say, 30 minutes out from
okay,
Kingston. Mhm.
okay. And so this is a typical European match, very cagey, very cagey. Uh, no one scores, goes into extra time. No one scores, goes into the second extra time. No one's scoring. About a minute before the game goes to penalties, Ivan Klasnic comes off the bench and scores for Croatia. Okay, we think the game is over. Nope. Semi Turk for the Turks goes right back down the field. It scores for them. Game goes to penalties. And I've never seen a place, especially for a neutral, left in
Mhm.
such shock of maybe a 2 to 3 minute span of actual sports action. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life.
Wow. Well, I am not a sports fan at all, and what you're saying to me don't make no sense because in Jamaican parlance, right? I don't have a clue because I am not a sports person. I will jump on a wagon when there's a major event going on, but that's as much as it is. So
I
I'm hoping those who love the sports will be able to make sense of what you just said.
hope so too.
All right. Let's get into your introduction, your origin, your genesis into the world of sports.
So I have to start off with being a youth. And so I always loved the time I got to spend around my dad, his brothers and the in-laws, my
Mhm.
uncles, and my maternal grandfather, and his brothers and my cousins, and a rite of passage was being able to sit there with them and talk about two things: sports and politics. And so this wasn't something you got to do just, all willy-nilly. You had to be about 15, 16, 17, 18 before they would listen to anything you would say. And so sports is all I've always been captivated by sports. I remember being a child, ESPN for us, when I was a child, was just forming and becoming what it is now. And so I could sit there and watch Australian rules football. No clue what's going on, but I'm knee deep into it. Winter Olympics, I can watch luge, no clue what they're doing, but I'm knee deep into it. There's that level of interest in sports. It's almost a nerdy level of interest in sports. So sports has always been there. I spent 20 years in the United States Army. And as I grew and realized that I'm going to do this to retirement, I also have to do something after retirement. And I made the decision that I wanted to be kind of in control of my life, in control of my day. Didn't want to be answering to other people. I tell people all the time, I spent 20 years letting people yell and scream at me like I was crazy. I wasn't going to do it after I retired. I had to figure out if I was going to go into something for myself, I had to figure out what made me happy, what I liked doing. Sports was obviously it. I also got to, throughout the military experience, the interaction and the networking with people. I actually enjoyed that. My networking is a lot different I found, especially as we grew into the technology age, where everybody else was just sending the email. No, I had to go talk to you directly, and that made me feel better about the interaction with you when I went, if I could go to you directly. Pretty much made the decision, yeah, I want to get into sports in some way, shape, or form.
All right, so let's continue to draw some parallels, or begin rather. Let's begin to draw some parallels with sports and business. So, what role does discipline and consistency play in both athletic and business success?
The discipline and consistency, more than anything, is a sign of stick-to-itiveness, what I call stick-to-it. One of the lessons that I try to tell people is you don't get into this for the guts, for the glory. There's a lot of, long days. There's a lot of emails. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of just listening to other folks, making sure the information is correct. The glamour stuff, that's about 5 to 10 minutes. The glamour days, it's maybe a day or two. The glamour moments, it's maybe a day or two. You have them, but once you get past that, you're back to reading something, reading the updated change, reading the updated contract, interacting with different brands on what they want to do or how they want to do it. So yeah, it's more the discipline and consistency is more of a sign of stick-to-itiveness. If I don't have some form of consistency, I'm not going to make it a long time in this. And it really isn't. You're not going to make it a long time in anything you do in life.
That's absolutely correct. And we want to look at some lessons from sports teams that business teams can learn when it comes to leadership and collaboration.
Well, I think one of the things is take the NFL football. One of the things that I've noticed, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, is legacy and transition from the business side. You see a lot of ownership groups where there's a family legacy within that ownership group, and that football team or that basketball team is the only thing that that family has made money off of. It's become their baby, and so you get to places where there's a senior member who's in charge of everything, and sometimes he or she is there too long. So what's going on in modern day, how a team now has to function in modern times, digitally, socially, from a technological perspective, it's passed them by. And a lot of times you'll see a younger child, one of the children, they're in the background trying to hold everything together while that older parent is basically causing chaos now or making a lot of decisions that's not very helpful. So one of the things that I've seen is definitely the idea of a legacy and transitioning out to the next person in that legacy, doing it at the right time, making sure that passing of the torch or that sale, if or from that selling the team is done at the right time. So you don't harm the team's growth and development.
Which kind of leads me to, how do athletes handle a tough loss, and what can entrepreneurs learn from that about regarding resilience?
Well, I think the lesson from specific sports is, there's going to be a game next week. Now, you look at football, whether it's college or the NFL or, UFL, Canadian Football League, the league in Europe, whatever. You look at football, the American gridiron, that's a very short, finite time. Okay. So I've got 16, 10, 12, whatever it is, 16, 17, 18, 19 games to make the most of every opportunity. Whereas juxtapose something like basketball. Okay, there's 82 games. We'll get to tomorrow morning. We got to shake tonight off. It was ugly. Got it. There's some things to fix. Yes. But there's a game a couple of days later, or there's a game tomorrow night. We'll get right back on the horse. Same thing with baseball, hockey, what we call soccer, what you all call football. Same thing. There's more opportunity to right the ship. And so that's one of the things. I think that is something where there is nuance depending on the sport, but there is an opportunity to right the ship.
Mhm. Indeed. And I want to move on to looking at marketing and community engagement
Hmm.
with the Spencer Group International. How do you tailor marketing and community engagement strategies for athletes or organizations with diverse audiences?
Well, I think one of the things that we want to do, and I think has to be done, is you have to understand the community you're in first. Okay. You've got to understand, okay, is there a large Latinx population? Okay. If we're reaching out to the African American community for our purposes, or if we're reaching out to a Black community just as in whole, what are the dynamics of that Black community? Is it a large immigrant community, whether that be Caribbean for American purposes, whether that be Caribbean or African or South American community? What are the you have to, I think, understand the dynamics first and foremost, and then you also have to commit to being in the fight, being engaged, commit to consistent, that word you used earlier, consistent communication. Because, just looking from a political perspective, we got an old stereotype of most Black folks here in the country where, a white politician will show up at the church October 26th and the election's November 5th, and you won't see him again for another 4 years. No, 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 no. We can't have that. If you're going to engage in community, you're going to have to be consistent to understand what's needed or understand how to operate now, understand how to function first and foremost. And that way you can develop a product or a program that works for the community, puts you in a good light, and keeps a consistent path of communication between the two entities.
You've been doing this for a while, the sports business for a while. And sometimes when we think about sports, we don't necessarily connect the word business or see it as a
Mm-hmm,
business,
mm-hmm.
right? Let's talk about your experience in the business, the literal business of sport. How has that been for you? Help us to understand what are the challenges that ought to be navigated, that you have to navigate.
Well, I'll tell you, sports is coming, the business side is having to come to grips now with where it wants to place itself. I thought it was just an American thing, but living abroad for a while, I figured out it was an international thing. A lot of the stadiums have moved back, or the developers and the planners have wanted to move back into the city in the last, I would say, 30 years, have wanted to move back downtown. Now, what has that done? That's done a quote unquote revitalization process, but it hasn't always helped people of color. It always hasn't helped less financially stable in that city. What it's done a lot of times is, okay, we decide we want to move the stadium back downtown or back into city limits per se. Okay, well, what that has done is you've built the stadium, you've created a lot of traffic coming in and out of that area now. Okay, so now we've got to get the construction crews and whatever else in to build up and clean up and restore, refurbish, and maintain. One of the requirements, generally 9 times out of 10, is a parking garage. So for a stadium for like an NFL stadium, okay, that parking garage for actual games is only used about in a good year 20, 22 times during the year. So what else are you going to do with it for the rest of the year? Well, what that's done is it's opening it up to city use. Okay, now the city uses it for whatever. So what's also happened then is it's opened up the door for commercial development, industrial development, the industrialized development in the communities, which has moved people who were in housing in those areas out and brought in large high rises. Or it's brought in Starbucks, it's brought in Whole Foods. Yes, it's brought in these things, but it's also moved things out. And so there's been this dilemma first and foremost of, are we doing the best thing for that community? Okay. And so what has also happened is, okay, those suburban communities that were on the outskirts of the city, lost funds. So now sports is in a fight. Okay, we've got older stadiums now. A lot of stadiums, especially here in the US, are now 20 plus years old. And in modern times, that's becoming dilapidated. That's becoming a stadium that needs work done to it. So the question becomes, okay, first and foremost, okay, are we going to refurbish the stadium or are we going to build another one? And if we decide to build another one, where do we build it? Do we build it off in suburbia or is there space downtown again? Or is there more space downtown? A lot of cities don't have that space downtown. So that's one of the challenges that sports are starting to deal with. Okay, well, where do we want to place ourselves, our actual facilities? And then, because a lot of times, okay, yeah, we'll have the stadium in the downtown area or in the city limits, but the facilities, the headquarters, the training areas are somewhere often that suburb. So what has happened is there's a question now of, do we want all our facilities in the suburbs or do we want all our facilities downtown? One of the other challenges is television now and where we are and how we intake media content just in general. Cable is now very expensive. And, more and more folks, no matter where you are in the world, are trying to figure out ways to cut the cord. More media and media companies now have basically what is basically an a la carte option where I can pick and choose what I want to watch. And so what has happened is you have a place where cable is a lot more expensive, but your high-end sports products have major cable deals or major linear television deals now. There's a question now of how do we handle these major television deals because streaming is now embedded in the country in the world's lexicon, if you will. And so Netflix has now kind of gotten entered the space of sports. With that said, streaming is also expensive because it's still a very dynamic process as far as live sports goes. Netflix has still had the challenge of, especially with certain folks had it with the Tyson fight, where the buffering that was happening during the fight. So you would see a picture, and then all of a sudden the picture would start buffering and buffering and buffering, and then all of a sudden they would be back. And so there's still technological challenges with streaming. Those technological challenges, addressing them or coming up with the answers to them will cost money. So until streaming kind of settles in and there's a high-end common process for it, because everybody's kind of, okay, yeah, we got streaming, but we're kind of doing our own thing until there's a common process for streaming. Streaming is going to cost. And so with television being the outside, along with the advertisers, things of that nature, television and the media companies being a major financial provider, how do they continue to provide a large portion of the finances but keep up with their costs? Those two things, I don't see how they're going to balance each other out without some give and take. So we're definitely in a space where the media and the content companies are going to have to figure themselves out. And these athletic clubs, from a business perspective, are going to have to figure out, okay, what's acceptable for us? Because the money, sooner or later, especially in some of the economies that we're in, the money's going to dry out.
Right. So lots of challenges there to navigate. So it's not just as it relates to your company, but in the general space of sports, the business of sports, for those who manage, sporting events, for those who manage sport overall, athlete managers and so on. These challenges obviously are crucial to the future and success of sports. And of course, I will continue to listen to experts like yourself share these because, sometimes I do drop in a little where sport is concerned, but as I mentioned, it's not necessarily my forte. But I did think it was necessary to have this conversation to draw the parallels between sports and business, because sports is indeed a business. And so we're now moving into our community connections segment, and this is where I invite you, my listeners, as you know, to give your feedback or for me to share what's happening so that you can engage with me even face to face. So if you're ready to be inspired and ready to network and sharpen your leadership edge, then in November, I'm hosting LeaderCast Kingston in October, right? And that is a premier leadership conference bringing together world-class speakers and regional change makers. So we will definitely be having a cast of amazing leaders who will be speaking at LeaderCast. We'll have some from Jamaica. And then in November, so that's one option to come and see me and connect with the community. And then in November, we set sail with the leadership cruise that is happening on Royal Caribbean's Liberty of the Seas, where leadership and leisure is going to intersect amidst the wonderful backdrop of the Bahamas. So just imagine workshops at sunrise, networking under the stars, really, and the energy of ambitious professionals like yourself. So for more details, reach out to me via WhatsApp at 876-849-2571 or via email at heneka@henekawatkis-porter.com. And as always, let us know your feedback. When you listen to the podcast, give us your feedback because it is your voice that shapes this community. And that's what's happening in the community connection segment as we wrap this conversation with Adam Lee Spencer, discussing the business of sport and how maximizing athlete potential and event impact can all go well for the business of sport for that arena. Let's bring this home, bring this to a close, Adam. Let's hear your final thoughts.
Well, first and foremost, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate your time, Heneka. You got a wonderful platform, and I thank you for the opportunity and for the conversation to speak to you and to your audience. You can find me, my company's, we're on Twitter, Instagram, Threads. Just type in Spencer Group International, and you'll find us. And, any questions, drop us a line. And once again, we wish you nothing but the best in all of your endeavors, and we thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time to Adam Lee Spencer. Thank you. And now it's time for Trending Now. So here's what's making waves in sports business. The global sports market is set to top $600 billion by the end of this year. And athlete social impact programs are growing rapidly, with 68% of fans now expecting athletes to engage with community issues. Digital media and name, image, and likeness deals are transforming the face of athlete management, making savvy branding and community ties more important than ever. And that's what's trending now. I want to say thanks again to Adam Lee Spencer for sharing his unique vantage point and practical wisdom regarding the business of sports. And for all of you, my peak performers, if you want to learn more about sports marketing, athlete management, or Adam's consulting work, then look him up, the Spencer Group International. Connect with him on website, on LinkedIn, and you can, learn more about what he's up to and how his work is impacting the space. And if this episode sparked new ideas, please follow the Entrepreneurial You, drop us your rating, and do share this episode with someone who is passionate about the business of sports or just leadership, right? We drew some parallel from sports to leadership. Remember, success is a team sport. Move forward together. We're in this thing together, right? I want you to affirm with me. I am mastering my game by blending passion, strategy, and purpose to create lasting impact on and off the field. Thanks so much to our sponsors, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and of course, HenekaWatkis-Porter.com too. Take care.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.